Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I too rise to speak on the Payroll Tax Amendment Bill 2024. And this is a flagship component of rebuilding the Territory's economy, as we well know, Madam Speaker. Sorry, Deputy Speaker. You've copped that a fair bit this afternoon. Yeah. Payroll tax, in short, is a tax on jobs. And we've been very, very clear for a long time that payroll tax reform is absolutely needed. But what we've just heard from the opposition leader is a tirade of or a wish list of things she should have done when she was in government and didn't do. I think it's incredibly rich for her to come in here when we're lifting the payroll tax-free threshold for the first time in 13 years to say that we didn't go far enough. They didn't go at all. Their car didn't even start, Madam Speaker. They were broken down with the bonnet up. They had no tools and they were all sitting around going, bloody hell, what do we do now, right? That is where Labor was, and that's where Labor still are. And they want to come in here today on a day where we're reforming payroll tax for the first time in 13 years and make these just pot shots that lack any semblance of credibility. It's actually quite embarrassing, Madam Speaker. She again is peddling their absolute rubbish around big interstate businesses benefiting. She clearly has no idea how payroll tax groupings work and has not read the legislation, which very clearly explains that if you're a business with a payroll of over $7.5 million, there is no payroll tax relief. So again, the detail doesn't matter to Labor, all of these things, it's all just pretty easy going on that side of the chamber because they don't care, Madam Speaker. They don't have the capacity to be able to understand these things, which is why they never did anything about it when they're in government. Which is why for 13 years, 8 of which she was in this government, they did absolutely nothing. And so we're very, very proud of these reforms. We're very, very proud of the fact that we're excluding apprentice and trainee wages in this reform piece. And I note how she likes to bring up comments from over 10 years ago in a different time and a different place in the Territory. We have skills shortages across the board. We have an entirely different workforce demand pressure, an entirely different economy for that matter. 10 years ago, things were looking pretty bloody good compared to now, Madam Speaker. It's just entirely different. And again, it shows the ignorance of a group of people who have no care around the detail and what it takes to grow an economy. Otherwise, they would have done it. And she talks a lot about a lack of vision. And yet this is the same person who stood for years after years after years in this parliament and spruiked a long list of what they would call major projects that have never, ever been delivered. So Labor's idea of having a vision and governing is to come out and tell Territorians what publicly funded projects they're going to do, only to deliver none of them, or deliver the ones that absolutely benefit no one, like the art gallery in State Square that will be being built for the next 2 years at an exorbitant cost to the taxpayer with no tangible benefit to the community when we could have spent that money, quite literally, Madam Speaker, on anything other than an art gallery. And to rub salt in the wound, this is a Labor government that built an art gallery in Darwin that we did not need, while Bullocky Point Museum is being chronically underfunded and crumbling into the ocean, and people in Alice Springs have been waiting a decade for their art gallery, Madam Speaker. So we in Darwin will enjoy an art gallery we never wanted and can't afford, while people in Alice Springs continue to not have a gallery. This is the level of incompetence we are dealing with, and the ramble and rant from the opposition leader just shows how divorced from reality Labor really are. They have clearly learnt no lessons following the election. And for her to come in all puffed up about undergrounding power, like as if this was actually going to happen, is unconscionable. This is a $60 million savings, and it was described to me by people from Power and Water. This is not delivering, Labor's plan was never going to deliver power, underground power to people's homes. What a joke. That $60 million we save would have removed one strand of cable from cables running down Bagot Road where there would still have been other cables hanging up. One cable out of multiple cables running down power lines on Bagot Road. So we saved $60 million for that. You're right, opposition leader. We didn't fake it to Territorians that we were going to deliver something that you were never going to do. And you continue to peddle that rubbish to them. Again, you had 8 years. If you wanted to do it, you could have done it. You didn't do it. And the reality is you were never, ever going to do it. So, Madam Speaker, again, a bit like question time, leading with a chin, but absolutely devoid of detail. And unlike Labor, payroll tax reform is real. This is something that everyday businesses will touch and feel and have an absolute tangible impact on. It will see around 200 businesses straight away stop paying payroll tax. And it will also see hundreds of other businesses have really important payroll tax relief. And what that means, Madam Speaker, for the everyday Territorian running a business with more skin in the game than anyone, more skin in the game with anyone, Territory businesses, it means they can spend that money on diversifying their business, increasing the type of services they provide or products that they produce. It can increase their staff. It can make sure they're incentivised to bring on more apprentices and trainees, which is something we desperately need in the Territory because their wages now won't form part of that cap. And payroll tax, that threshold was originally set for the Territory in 2009 at 1.25 million. It crept up ever so slightly in 2011 to 1.5 million, but it hasn't changed since. And gosh, has the world changed in 13 years, Madam Speaker. Of course, we've seen wages growth and everything else, which means the number of staff you could hire in 2011 for $1.5 million was a lot more than the number of staff you can hire in 2025 for that same amount. And this is deliberately sneaky. It's effectively lowering the payroll tax threshold by stealth. That was Labor's methodology because they knew that wages growth meant businesses were pushing into that threshold sooner and tipping over the scales. And they knew that because they wanted that, because they were desperate for revenue, because they were blowing the books every day of the week. They couldn't bring themselves to do what's required to grow our economy. So their only way to bring revenue to Territorians was through increased taxation. This was taxation by stealth under Labor. And that ends because we know that payroll tax is a tax on jobs and that the private sector is much better at spending that money and investing in our future and growing our economy than the public sector. And I've given a number of speeches recently where we talk about the increase in public sector spending over the last, it's either a decade or 2 decades, where it's gone up around 190% compared to private sector investment of 33%. This is way out of kilter. Again, I go back to that art gallery out the front, or the $8 million we magically had to find for the motocross GP, where Labor did a deal in the dying days of their government to spend over $5 million bringing the Grand Prix to the Territory, signing us in, locking us in, and then didn't fund the track to anywhere near the amount that was required. I think it was budgeted at about 1.6. It's come in over 8. And not only that, but that track has to be removed every year and put back every single year. These are the types of deals Labor was doing for 8 years. That's the type of level of unwinding and unpicking that we are having to do while simultaneously advancing the Territory forward. There is the legacy being left to us, and this payroll tax will not be one of them. We will not allow this to go on any further. It is a regressive system, and it is not acceptable. And we know that we can do better. We know the private sector will be better off spending that money. And it sends a message to this country that the Territory is a good place to do business, because we will now be the most competitive jurisdiction in the country on a payroll tax basis. And that counts. That counts. I was on a national media program last night, Madam Speaker, and I said, come to the Territory, do business here. Take that opportunity. And when you match that with our $50,000 home build scheme, it paints a very, very prosperous picture, particularly for younger people living in Sydney and Melbourne, never in a position to be able to afford their own home. This is a game-changing opportunity, and it's one we want to put our entire heart and soul into as a government to get this right. And of course, it's not just payroll tax. We have a range of other measures, regulatory reform, what we're doing. And again, it goes back to the incompetence of the opposition leader who believes that vision, I don't know what she thinks vision is. To her, vision is listing off projects that will never happen and hoping someone believes her. That's not vision. What we understand is what business need to be able to deliver certainty so that they invest. And that's why we're doing this payroll tax reform. That's why the Territory Coordinator legislation will be introduced tomorrow. That's why we're scrapping third-party merits review. That's why we've got the Approvals Fast Track Task Force to report to us in June so that we can remove unnecessary red tape. That's why we are making these important regulatory reforms. You don't have to overpromise and underdeliver. You can actually just do your job and create an environment where people can achieve their aspirations and dreams for the future. And that's the road we're going down, Madam Speaker, to create the environment where everyday Territorians, no matter where they live, know that the decisions for their life are in their hands. Decisions are there to be made and they are for the individual. And we will give everyone that equal opportunity to succeed in life and achieve their dreams. We will create the framework where you live is safe, where there are jobs and opportunities for everyone, where you can have a good life, raise your family the way you want to, with the values that you believe in for your family. That's the Territory we're building after 8 years of devastation under Labor. And that's a Territory where people can then move forward. And payroll tax is one piece in that puzzle. It could save some businesses $22,000. And you imagine what you can do with that as a small business. And we've already had so many small businesses come to us excited about what they're going to do. Some are already got their sights on employing more staff. Some already have employed more staff. They're just excited about the opportunity. For others, small businesses who are nearing that threshold in the next couple of years, the relief on their faces, because embarking on a payroll tax journey is a whole nother level to running your business and also having your family and all of those other things. And so to give those businesses, the ones up and coming, that bit of relief where they don't have to turn their mind to that hurdle anymore and they can just continue to grow and do what's right for their business and deliver services and opportunities for Territory. And the relief on their face is priceless, Madam Speaker. The investments people are going to make. I spoke to a cafe owner who just can't wait to be purchasing a new piece of equipment for her cafe. Excitement in that business, new opportunities for that business. That's real. You can take that to the bank. It's tangible, it's meaningful, it's important. And quite frankly, the way Labor spent Territory taxpayers' money, Labor should be refunding Territory businesses for the payroll tax they collected in their time, because it is an absolute disgrace that we have uncovered $1.1 billion in budget blowouts and a range of projects that they've contracted the Territory into that have unfunded ongoing operational expenditure. Unfunded. Again, our hands are tied. We have to find money from somewhere. And so the opposition leader, going back to her point about, why aren't we going to build 11,000 homes in whatever arbitrary time frame the Albanese government decided and the Lawler government just said yes to. Well, you're having a go at us on one hand about how we're going to spend more money on corrections, and then you stand here in front of corrections officers and talk about how tough their job is, but you're worried about how much we're going to spend to fix it. Well, we're not worried about how much money it's going to take to fix it, because it absolutely has to be done. This is a crisis situation that requires a crisis response. That's why we have the Corrections Master Plan. That's why in the budget, we will put it all in there for all to see. It will all be there for Territorians to understand just how much Labor neglected that system.
And it's a lot.
It will be a substantial amount of money, but there is absolutely no avoiding it. And you know what? If we didn't have so many ridiculous monuments to Labor being built or had been built, it wouldn't even be an issue, would it, Minister for Corrections?
Definitely not.
We've got a police station at night.
Police station at Nightcliff, $12.7 million right there. The bus stop that moved and got moved again. I mean, the shadeless shade structure, the list goes on and on and on. The playground up at Miley Point that has a slide and a swing for 4, 5, 6. Yep, $26 million for the car park next door. The list goes on and on and on. And so, Madam Speaker, we're really proud to be cutting payroll tax for small business. This is a fantastic step forward for our government, and we know it means a lot. We've been listening to the concerns of the business community, and we can see very clearly in our economic results that something has to change. And we make no apologies for delivering reform and change, Madam Speaker, because Territorians did not elect our 17-strong government to do more of what Labor was doing. In fact, they put us here to do the exact opposite. They sent Labor walking for a very important reason, because they'd lost touch with the community's expectation. They let crime get out of control. Our economy was in freefall, and our lifestyle was literally being ripped out from underneath us. The Territory had become a place that those of us born here or lived here a long time could hardly recognise anymore. Hardly recognise. We'd all packed up family and friends and said goodbye to them and cried with them as they moved into state. That story was something we would hear every single day. And so we will fight, Madam Speaker. We will fight for this Territory because we believe in the future of this place, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our systems are strong, our budget is under control, our spending is purposeful and deliberate, that we meet our election commitments and promises to Territorians, that we focus on our key areas of reducing crime, rebuilding the economy and restoring our lifestyle, because that is what we've been put here to do. And in 4 years, Territorians will look back and judge us on our actions. And that's exactly what they should do, because we know that if we stick to our plan, life will be better for everyone. Life in the Territory will be better. And that is what we're working through, Madam Speaker. That is what we're working towards. 2025 will be remembered as a year for delivering action, certainty and security for all Territorians. We've outlined our plan on how we're going to achieve that. And this payroll tax reform is one critical component of making sure we rebuild the Territory's economy. I want to thank the Treasurer and all of the Treasury staff, the Under-Treasurer and the team for pulling this together. It's a very, very key milestone for us. I know the waiver started on 1 January, but making this law will mean come 1 July, our payroll tax reforms are in full swing, and we know that Territorians will be better off for it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.